We're going to talk about leveraging today's door technologies. My name is Donna Chapman. I am the Director of Security Consultant Relations for ASSA ABLOY. So I try and help, consultants and end users navigate through the products, the portfolio, the brands, the divisions, and all that fun stuff. I've been selling and consulting in regards to door hardware and access control for 20 years. This is my 20th year. So that enough about me. Our panel.
You started when you were 14.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our panel. We have Ryan Schonfeld from RAS Security. I think I just botched your.
It's all good.
Sorry. Let me get it right. So we have Ryan.
RAS Consulting and Investigation.
Thank you. So all right. So and then we also have Chris from Guidepost, and we also have Damon from Rytarkin. So what I'd like you guys to do is, if you could, just take the microphone, do a quick intro on yourselves.
Really? So Chris Grniet, Guidepost Solutions. I've been in the industry. Yeah. So I've been in the industry. It's still not working. It's on. Just over 30 years. I didn't start when I was 12 either, as you can tell. But if you're familiar with Guidepost, we do projects big and small. Been doing that my entire career. Worked in the commercial sector, worked for some large financial institutions, and have been managing projects, hundreds of projects for the last 3 years.
Chris, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Damon, and I've been doing this about 25 years now, mostly working with integrators or for integrators, design engineering, worked in fire alarm quite a bit as a design engineer, and I said 3 in fire alarm. However, I've been involved in security, like I said, 25 years along with that. So PSP, CSPM, professional stuntman. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Hi, Ryan Schonfeld, LA based. I started in law enforcement, local, and as a trainer for feds. While I did that, I got a master's in IT, and then moved into IT and security space. And I work primarily with end users at this point on security operations and investigations. And with the IT part, we get pretty ingrained in the IT part of security and system design.
Thanks. So what we're going to talk about is the complexities of openings, right? There's a lot of products, there's a lot of solutions, there's a lot of need, there's a lot on the security consultant's mind, there's a lot on an end user's mind. So really what we're going to kind of talk about is how technology that's available today is obviously an ongoing conversation. Access control is growing in every project, every facility, and users want more access control. Obviously, that plays in the security consultant space, right? And what we want to talk about is a little bit of some of the projects that you've used, that you've worked on, that you've used, innovative products and solutions, and how you were able to deliver a good project value, how do you say it? So a value engineered overall project, because you're mixing and matching solutions. You're looking at each opening uniquely and addressing it based on needs and requirements. And how has technology affected how you do projects is really what we'll talk about. So Chris, how has technology affected some of the projects that you've worked on?
Well, most recently, I think the integrated lock concept has really opened, no real pun intended, but opened the doors to a lot of opportunities, right? We are able to put security on doors that we typically would just have to make sure we key probably, because they didn't want to put the expense in for replacing, an existing door. I'm working on a project now, for example, where we have 50 mechanical room doors that we wanted to lock down. The doors will remain in place. They're labeled. There's not a lot we can start to do with that. They're fire-rated doors on mechanical, but all of a sudden you get the integrated lock. We're using the N100s, for example. And I've got security on that door, I've got audit trail, I've got monitoring. So it created a lot of opportunities in the market to put security where we don't have it now. And the integrated lock concept with the onboard meters and the integration to the packs is a tremendous opportunity for those.
What other advancements in door technologies do you feel would be beneficial to the industry?
I think it's the continued advancement of those integrations and the technologies within the locks and the integrated locks themselves. As we try to get away from a keyless environment, making it cheaper, faster, and more applicable is certainly something we need to do. We had a long discussion about how hardware also plays into project success. And security components have to be a part of that. And when I say that, I'm talking about sustainability, LEED level projects, how we specify power consumption on locks, how we monitor power consumption on locks, how batteries are deployed, how are they going to be maintained. And setting up, that should be part and parcel of your specification as you start to look at this. But I think more and more advancements in the integration of that technology is certainly going to help everybody get to those points.
And if I could add, we do a lot of tech companies, which means open creative offices and glass. So for us, when you go into a space that's all glass doors, there really isn't much available yet in the way of integrated locks that have your position switch and your request to exit all built into the hardware of the door, and so it's hard to maintain the aesthetic that they're going for while still accomplishing the security objective.
So Damon, what are some of the solutions that you have specified in your projects to help lower your clients' long-term costs?
So lowering long-term costs, I feel comes from the cost, the energy savings that they have mostly. So by specifying products that are power over Ethernet, I feel is a tremendous cost savings long term. I'm a big fan of power over Ethernet through the lock. I don't usually see much of a pushback on it when we can show the long-term cost savings. Not only power over Ethernet to the lock, but frequently Wi-Fi devices where we can, and certainly wireless as well, where we're not actually taking power from the building itself. But when you consider power over Ethernet, I think that really does provide the strongest long-term cost savings.
Another thing that I would add to that is when you're talking PoE and Wi-Fi, it's a Panelists access control solution, so it's a little different than traditional. And the other benefits and savings is the fact that you don't have that extra architectural component and piece, but the biggest one, and I don't know if you're seeing this with your end users, is the lost real estate that you have to account for a bunch of openings that require the architecture where now that goes away.
Right, yeah, and that's absolutely true. The footprint of these access control systems, can become very large very quickly. The requirement for, AC voltage in these rooms grows. Then you start needing to engage the electrical to provide that for you, and anything where we can kind of cut some of that out, I think, again, as you pointed out, it's a huge cost savings and a real estate savings. So.
Quick one.
Oh, sorry.
On your PoE experience, have you run into 294, UL 294, 294B as an issue that you're having to make a way to get approved power into your PoE, or are you just using standard network switches for that, for PoE?
So I have not run into that per se. I'm aware of it, and I realize that there kind of needs to be some drive for the industry, the Ciscos, if you will. I don't know, and I don't know they're such a powerhouse in that market. I don't know if they'll see the need to become UL 294, 294B certified, but to answer your question, I have not had that come up as a code compliance issue yet. And I will add that what I appreciate about it is, typically speaking, these rooms where the switches are housed generally are on emergency backup power, right? We run a generator. There's plenty of UPS in that room, but it becomes an issue of coordination with the structured cabling consultant to ensure that their UPSs are sized accordingly and that their switches are PoE plus where needed. So,
Are you specifying the switches for that application, or are you using what the IT guys typically would use for PoE?
I personally do not like to specify those. I like to give the functional requirements of it over to the structured cabling designer and let them meet that requirement. They're the ones that are going to be talking more directly to the IT side, and my hope is that they've taken what I've said and they're going to their client, the same client, and explaining why they need to use one switch over another.
But you know, Dave, it varies from project to project, and it's really how integrated is your process. And we just had this conversation in another session about the integration and acceptance of security into the IT component of every project or any commercial enterprise. And yeah, I see a lot of benefits there, as much as I've resisted it for years because the IT guys, and I've said this before, either slow you down, screw you up, or just don't want to play with you. Right?
Amen, brother.
So now that's changing. As they absorb those responsibilities, I'm wholly dependent on them to specify those switches. Here's the specifications of what I'm going to use. Here's how we're going to make a transition from point A to point B. The rest is up to you. And I'm more than happy to do that. Because at the end of the day, they're going to take ownership of the network, and they've got to be responsible for everything that's connected to it. So I'm going to have my structured cable person or the structured cable person get it to the patch. You know, 9 times out of 10 now, all the integrator's doing is walking in, plugging their camera in and mounting it on the wall or the ceiling. And that's the best condition ever for them. Because everybody else is taking it from that connection back. All they need is an IP address and they're up and running, right?
Good.
Question, Brian. How do the electronic access control needs of your clients fit into your security proposals, and how do you get the buy-in on the initial upfront costs?
You know, the spaces we work in have changed a lot. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but we're doing a lot of open office environments and creative space. A lot of these tech companies like buying historic buildings, which is a huge pain in the ass. But these wireless options that don't require the infrastructure and the conduit and all the things that come into play when you are in a historic space make those applications a lot easier. And even though the unit cost of a specific product may be slightly higher, the infrastructure costs are so much lower. Because as we all know, the infrastructure is the real cost of security. And when you start removing those pieces of the puzzle, the overall price comes down to a real manageable point.
So I guess, thank you for that. So the question that I have, for all three of you is sustainability. How often are you having a sustainability type conversation with your end client? And how is the access control and the solutions you're recommending factor into that?
A lot more now, especially with the creative spaces and going into all these LEED certified buildings, and power of everything is taken into account as part of the TI. So it's becoming a pretty regular conversation for us.
You know, I had a long conversation with Mark about this. Everybody in this room, and I'll continue to push it as long as I can. You need to be progressive. You need to get into the green space of your projects. You need to understand, as little as it has been historically, the point value that you as a security practitioner can contribute to a project. that is growing exponentially as we talk about these IT integrations, and we talk about the locks and the ability to remove power from that process. We also talked about the itemized packaging, contribution to a LEED green building. How many projects, show of hands in the room, anybody been involved in a zero waste project recently? Toughest thing to do in the security industry because everything is commoditized. It's all individually packaged and wrapped with 20 pieces of plastic and pieces of cardboard and everything else. And so you need to work from the manufacturing end forward to try and make that reduction. Locks, security hardware have been in the green space for longer than anybody else in the security industry because they live in the architectural space, right? So they've got to look at their manufacturing processes. I think that ASSA is doing a great job of producing products with low power consumption, low maintenance on the batteries, or whatever else it is. Their entire, low cost, but when we talk about more about that sustainability feature, it's a great place for us to start picking up points or to participate in the green conversation as we go through these, because there isn't much else in the industry that's already been there. And it's something that the architects understand, it's something that the carpenters and GCs understand because they're going to have to install it. And so I think it's a huge contributor. And I think there's a lot more progress to be made in that field. And we'll see it as batteries get smaller and stronger, as the technologies get more and more integrated, and the integrations get more sophisticated.
Yeah, no, good point. So we have one of our factories, as a matter of fact. So we're so committed to sustainability that we have a solar farm in our property, which powers 51% of all of our manufacturing in one of our facilities. That's about 740,000 square feet. So we're committed there. Also, when you are working with projects that have to meet a sustainability requirement, we have our doors, right, which is recycled material. You get actual points and calculations, and we can help you with that. So if in addition to the locks and the devices, you can do a lot more with the mechanical hardware and doors as well.
So Chris, if you could just take us a little deeper on this zero waste. I mean, because when you start pulling each individual item into each individual box with its wrapper, a separate instruction sheet in each one, are you actually asking the manufacturers to repackage that for delivery?
I would like it to start on the manufacturing side, because putting the onus on all of the middlemen becomes increasingly difficult. Where does that start? Is it at the distributor level? Is it at the integrator level? Or is it at the actual, the point of execution? And who in that process is going to take on that responsibility? So the more we can get, I offered up an idea to Mark about, maybe you guys can use reusable containers, because what you're doing is you're shipping to distributors, but maybe it goes out to the distributor in its normal packaging and they take care of it. We had great success on one project I mentioned with Annixter, for example, where we had to have a zero waste project. Well, it wasn't going to depend, we weren't going to depend on the integrator to take care of that. It just wasn't going to happen. It's too hard for them, right? So when we worked with Annixter, we worked at the middle of the supply chain to have Annixter take everything out of its boxes and out of its wrappers and bring it to the site in packaging that could be reused. All the labels stayed with it, all the stuff they needed to make sure it got installed properly stayed with it, but then they picked it up and brought it back and reused it. So there's a lot of ways to approach it, but it needs to start the manufacturers. I think ASSA's done that, several others are looking at it, but we work in an industry, again, the components where they're manufactured. 90% of what gets manufactured in our industry starts in China or in the Far East. There's precious metals involved, rare earth metals, and hazardous earth metals, right? And so that's another component to this that I don't know that we can overcome, because we live in an electronics circuitry age, and that's just the nature of the beast, the silicon and everything else. But there are ways to develop sustainability in the process. and just make that the only piece that's still not green.
Interesting. I read an article a couple months ago, and it was California is going to be affected with a utilities increase, like 50%, very substantial, right? So power consumption is really becoming more of a conversation all the time. Where we have battery power, we have PoE power, which is low power consumption. We're all constantly innovating our solutions for the low power consumption. Do you find that your clients are a little bit more open-minded to mixed powered solutions like battery and PoE and that the power consumption just for that savings?
You want to answer? Certainly, like for example, National Renewable Energy Laboratories in Golden, Colorado. Every project there is a zero waste project. So we are constantly, and it's been DOE to the law hadn't quite been fully developed at that time. So we had to take into consideration that even a battery-powered device, a drained battery is still a waste object. So where we were able to kind of help was looking more at some of the cradle-to-grave requirements of the United States Green Building Council and help with that. But so we really did have to come up with a mixed use, whether that be some power supplies we're looking at the lowest current draw locks we can find, using traditional power supplies and trying to mix in some battery powered items in there, where we felt that it would apply. We really didn't want to have to pull cable out there. We didn't want to have the integrator pulling that big yellow banana cable. Anywhere we could eliminate that, anywhere we could keep the building insulated without having wires in the ceilings, lots of skylights, of course, because again, they're trying to use as little energy as possible. So it really did become a mix of battery powered, traditionally powered, and now with the latest project with PoE powered. So it really is blended together, and it seems to be functional very well.
How do you get over the problem with PoE power where they're going to take the switch down for maintenance?
How do I get over that problem? So,
Well, there's a couple of ways to do it, but again, it's part of change management like anything else in the IT industry now.
Yeah.
So you've got to have that conversation with the security department about their coordination and interface with IT. And again, there's two departments that typically have been butting heads over a lot of things. Why do I have to put in a VM? Why can't I just have my hard box server supported by my integrator, right? And the facilities team. If you have a fear about that, I know you know how to handle this data, is it fail secure or is it fail safe? And if it's fail safe, it must not have been that important anyway, so when they take that switch down, that's how I handle it.
You really don't value that asset.
And we have all locked in to do the assessment where there's security for convenience. But again, in the keyless, as we move into that keyless society, where your credential is going to be you, is now being your device that's attached to you. It's all but embedded in a lot of people these days. And the locks have the intelligence to deal with those elements. I think it becomes less of an issue because the secure areas, you need to design to be the secure areas, no matter what condition that power or fire is in, right?
Right.
So.
But when the CEO can't get in, then
that just means you don't go to work that day, right? But as much as I can, when the conversation comes up, and I'm glad you brought this up because I don't think it has come up enough. If we can work with their IT department and actually use a little bit of each switch instead of trying to put them all on a single switch, we can better control what areas might be going down at any given time if a switch should go offline. So if you could just put some thought to that when you're laying out a system and imagine, okay, if a group of doors does have to fail, which group should we group together? How can we group these together and spread them across 3, 4, 5 switches, whatever may be available. So I'm not saying I recommend specifying 5 switches for 5 doors, but if you have that ability to spread them across multiple switches, that would be something I would recommend.
And of course, it's a lot easier with the locks and the readers because I can stay on the primary business network. They're not necessarily concerned about the amount of traffic that we're piping across there, right? So I think that's a lot easier to do to his point. And you want that diversification anyway. We don't want that single point of failure. But to his point, in a major outage, I don't think the CEO's coming to work anyway. Because there's nothing for him to do there, right? But that's a lot harder, and we're in a logs conversation, so I'll keep it there, but it's a lot harder with video.
Yeah.
You're winding up in that VLAN and that, you're on one switch in my room, get out.
Well, and outage is one thing. I think, in terms of scheduled maintenance, if it's going to be taking a server down, that's usually being coordinated off hours and outside of normal business, because that's going to take down IT and their ability to actually run the company, which they care far more about than our stuff.
I'm thinking just in terms of taking down a switch for maintenance.
But they're not doing that during business hours. They should be.
But access control may need to work 24 hours, not just you.
No, I understand.
I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah, but you got to pick and choose your battles, right? It's all about the design and that mix. It is, and I've got a mix of wireless, battery operated, PoE, and hard current that I need to deal with, and I need to understand all of the implications of what you're saying, David. And in fact, I've got to worry about if there's a network outage, planned or otherwise, for all of those things now. And I think that's another opportunity with the integrated lock, is that all of that intelligence, it's still a panel. It's got the intelligence there, it's got the memory there, but now I've moved it out to the door. And maybe it's talking with the lock manufacturers about battery backup on POs,
Exactly.
But you could deal with the zero waste issue. I think another point when you first asked the question was, are we seeing a mix amongst the clients? What do they have a preference for? I think we've all gotten them over the battery scare, right? How many cycles of use? When's it going to fail? All of those things. And working into the SOPs, you got a program. And now, because the intelligence is able to report the low battery, it's a lot easier to manage.
And it's not on the power grid.
Exactly.
There's nothing proprietary about it, and they're just smart and they're lean. And by having, say a Wi-Fi device, for instance, panel, so it's redirect status, it's all built in, so it's smart. So in a situation where, card reader and electrified hardware would require the panel to, make those decisions, and if there was an interruption, there'd be some, inconvenience, whereas it's all right there on the door and the device.
So about 10 or 15 years ago, we talked about Kiwi toll reform, from the manufacturing cycle all the way through lifetime. What was the impact to the environment? And Donna, this is more for you, have you all started to look at, okay, what is the total lifetime cost of different lock configurations? In other words, if we have a lot of offices that are key and a master key is lost, now we have to go through a rekeying process. And based on historical information, how many times does that happen in a large environment? When I showed up at Lane Community College, it hadn't been rekeyed since the 60s, and they had at least 40 master keys that they couldn't account for.
Well, I'll tell you, knowing I spent a lot of time at the owner level, they'll admit frequently that their key system's antiquated, compromised, okay? Even though a key system is a cheaper solution, it's pain for a lot of facilities because it might mean that you might have to take off hardware just to record. That's the evolution of access control and why end users want more access control for a better price point so that they can eliminate some of that pain. And with the devices too, if the key is used, it'll alarm back to the head ends.
The point I'm making is the holy grail, in my opinion, in security has always been, can we show them
The ROI.
the ROI? And nobody has a model that I know of that really works.
He does.
Jim does.
Jim, you really publish that?
Not exactly an ROI, but when I go into a design, I make decisions sometimes, about kind of hardware. I set up 3 different models. One is an electric strike. Oh, you don't want electric strike. One is electric strike, it's based, the other one is a standard mortise lock with electric mortise lock with RQE on the inside lever. And the third is a self-contained lock with either Wi-Fi or wireless. And guess which one the cheapest one is? It's a new building, by the way, that's important to know.
Are you looking at lifetime cost?
Yeah, I mean.
Or just MSRP.
Just MSRP right now, just MSRP, what do you think the lowest price is?
It's a trick question, Dave.
You bet, I wouldn't be asking.
Are you putting the reader and stuff into it?
Well, yeah, no, the reader is on the side of the door where readers are.
No, he's saying it's just an electrified mortise with the Rex.
An electrified strike.
No status switch.
Huh?
No status switch on key.
You're catching me on all these things, but yes, a door, no, just a door switch.
Oh, just the door.
Just a door switch.
Yeah.
This was just for comparison purposes. So you got a door switch. In example 1, you got a door switch, you got an electric strike, you got
A Rex reader?
a Rex for just like a motion detector, something like that. And a card reader, yeah. Card reader mounted next to the door in a standard way.
So the full package MSRP would be the electrified lock. And especially if you're using like the links.
What's electrified lock?
The electrified mortise set.
Okay, you're talking about the links, so you're going up to this kind of
That's what I mean, because you're adding the reader in, you've got a door position switch. All I'm really buying in the lock is the electrification of the function and the Rex switch. Right? So by the time I'm done installing that, I've pre-ordered a door that doesn't cost a lot of additional money to prep a door.
Right.
I'm buying the pre-packaged link solution that allows us to mount the thing, get the wire through. Carpenter can do it from beginning to end. I don't need the security integrator there, because it's a pre-packaged component. So I'm saving time and money. Once I start cutting strikes in, I'm spending way much.
Yeah,
that's why I'm asking you if you're talking about MSRP of the products.
No, I'm talking about
the inside.
I give you all these products, and you install them. You charge me for the install. Labor and everything. Run it up to a door junction panel of some sort, and you stop there. And I give 3 different scenarios to two different companies that supplied both hardware, the door hardware, big company, and they had an install arm for access control. 2 separate companies, and the least priced one was the electrified mortise lock, not the all-in-one lock, the electrified mortise lock. I think a lot of people think electric strike is cheaper, but electric strike has to have a lock set in order to work. And in a new building, you got to buy that lock set. If you're using a mortise lock, it's what, $265, $270, something like that, plus the amount to put it in.
Well, plus I've got to add a Rex in, so I could have another power supply, another motor.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. That's with every one of these examples had a door detection, had card readers, had and one of those forms of electric.
It's a full functioning door, basically.
Yeah, it was a full functioning door.
Sure. Are you taking into account power for that?
No. Well, I mean, the power was not taken into account.
I just think what you're getting at is that people think, because if you look at electric strike and you look at a list price book, an electric strike's cheaper, right? But then when you factor in frame condition, the prep, and then, it's not just the strike, I have to have
the lock.
It addition to. So
And
that's
the-
why,
And the reps.
yeah.
and the integrators were surprised because they've been putting in electric strikes all this time. And folks like you, Donna, were surprised that yours wasn't the lowest because it factored in, you had the kind of the all-in-one thing. It wasn't your lock, I believe, but I mean, your devices are wonderful, but they're very expensive. And when you multiply those times 1,000 locks, that gets pretty intense.
We should do a pricing exercise because I'm going to tell you something quickly on a high level. When we talk about an integrated solution, right, versus reader, electrified hardware panel, and all that, right? So typically that's one guy 8 hours per opening just for labor.
Yeah. That was counted in. That was
Okay,
counted in.
but I'm just going to that's why we should do a real pricing exercise on the integrated solutions because, so now you do the labor rate. Wi-Fi lock is about 90 minutes in opening, right? So there's a huge, substantial labor rate. Hold on. Then the architectural component. So you don't have, say, a Linnell panel, right? A Linnell on-guard panel. You have to have that architecture or that hardware component piece. Right now, that's gone away. And then the real estate, which doesn't really count for any value or any dollar savings, but you're not losing the real estate. So when you then, so if I'm working on a project in New York City, the labor rate's crazy there. So it's like, all right, we're gonna do 400 openings, right? Now you do a wired scenario there, that's a lot, and then they really spend a lot of money on the labor rate. But there's such a substantial savings on overall the architect, or the architectural component, all the pieces and parts. Really, then you have a device. You have your power supply, you have your reader, you have your REX, your latch status, you have all in one. And I would love to do a pricing exercise with you.
Tell you what, I'll set up a hardware schedule, door detail, and give it to you, and you can price it out. And I'll go to HES and have them price it out as an electric strike, and I'll go to our friends in St. Louis who build up lock mods and have them price one out. But better yet, maybe even an integrator. That would probably be the
Right,
best
because he's going to then
solution.
say, oh, okay, if it's an existing opening, concrete filled frame. And
Well, the existing opening is an entirely different program on this, but I do know that I was able to save about $500,000 on a job using your type of lock on one job. I ran the numbers on that one, and they came out done. So I'm confused.
Yeah, so we'll work together on that.
Well,
Because that's why we don't do the one size.
I think part of the difference too is you can't take a strike and an electrified mortise and an integrated solution and compare them on face value of the product price, because that's not a real assessment.
Right, apples and oranges.
Right, and no, this wasn't. This was difficulty level. This was done by an integrator who knew all the other pieces and parts that needed to be in place. And so what I would like to do, and I'm big in these kind of things, you've probably got my spreadsheets too many times. What I'd like to do is set out to integrators these scenarios and let them get prices,
Because it's going to vary by market too. I mean,
Well, sure it is.
You go down to the deep south and they're paying guys $10 an hour versus, a union guy in New York City.
If it's got a wire on it, the union
How many
electrician's
union
got
guys?
it.
But,
How many union guys in New York City? You said the union
well,
guy.
probably about
It takes 3 to do every
Well,
job.
I was thinking 8 for this because.
One from the hall to wire the thing, one to stand there and supervise him, and one to collect the check.
Well, we're talking about light bulbs in New York, and there was, change a light bulb down there was $3,000.
I did have a question from a best practices standpoint, because we were talking about moving into newer technology where we have to coordinate now with the IT guys for what we can do. If you've deployed Wi-Fi locks, are you creating your own separate Wi-Fi system to run this on? Are you going on the corporate system? Are you able to divide the corporate into a VPN? What's the best practice approach that
Yes,
you would
It
recommend?
depends.
Yes, it depends.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just another SSID on a wireless access point.
Okay.
What's
I think for us, it's a conversation with IT, and the question is, are they gonna own the system? And are they gonna be willing to maintain it and deal with everything, or do they want the integrator to hold that responsibility and that risk?
Are they really owning out to the WAP, or are they owning all the way through the lock? I mean, what are they?
But you're assuming potentially that you're deploying your own WAPs, and you're creating your own mesh. And
there's lock selection that happens in there, and it is the conversation with IT about, can I leverage that existing mesh? Can I leverage that existing Wi-Fi? And will they allow the SSID to be on there? Is it a risk to them? They've got to analyze, and that's why, you know, you got that integration with IT becomes more and more important, because we're going to be wholly dependent on them to make the comm happen. The other option is to go with an RF unit that has its own wireless system.
Like an Apereo.
You put, you take the Aperios out there and put a node out there, and that way it's all under your control until it's back on the PAX network, right?
It's my experience that IT likes owning it because it gives them that extra bit of control over security, which they're fighting for anyways.
So as we've seen the industry change, right? So we've all been in the industry for a long time where, you know, more facilities and lock shop, you know, individuals were the ones kind of doing some of the access, right? Now it's shifting over to IT because, you know, all this, you know, the panel solutions and you know, so it's really becoming, they're so much more involved. And I was going to ask a question sort of like what you did to the group about, you know, so now that we've evolved a little bit, now we are you know, working more with IT departments within facilities. And, you know, in the beginning, they were absolutely pushed back. No, they were really hard, but now they're not. They're embracing it. They love it. They see the security in it. They see the value, and it really kind of goes back to their budget. So they're really adopting it. But, you know, I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, to that, I think when the IT guy was just providing a drop to this wall covered in panels, that was, he's like, I don't want this. Holy crap, you know. But now if you've got, say, a Mercury-based system that is running on, say, like a 1501 or MR51E, now they're just looking at it as, oh, my cable comes here, and it's just this little can with, you know, a board, and, you know, now they're like, I think they've adapted. Like I said before, it was a big scary room with lots of panels, and now that it's all distributed, and they just see, here's a switch, here's the category cable that I'm so used to seeing, and it's plugging into this little circuit board, you know, I'm okay with this. And as Ryan said, I think that they want more control over security.
So, following on the Wi-Fi side, now we have a device out there that you don't have to get into the box, you don't have to get into the wire, potentially, to get into the network.
It's risk.
It's risk, okay. So, we talked a lot earlier in this about cameras. It's been kind of a hot topic because they're the ones that have actually been breached and been used for the denial of service attacks. Are we seeing any occurrence of any of these Wi-Fi devices?
No, but I've had, and it's funny that you mentioned that too. So I had a smartest college that, you know, it was MIT students, right? They're like, our students are the smartest, they can hack it. It's like, you take it, there's encryption, right?
Yeah.
And remember, the devices are always current with information, so it's not just sitting on your network, just there. It only connects for a couple of seconds for a quick data exchange. And obviously we've done some penetration testing as well. But yeah, they're really solid. And if you're used to IP cameras, right, big data hogs. The Wi-Fi locks are a text message worth of data, so it's pretty quick and fast.
See, that's my concern. That is my client's concern. Some clients' concern about the PoE lock is that now I'm bringing the connection out to the door, and so if there's a compromise, you could be slow in response, you know, at some of these entrances. But it's real-time reporting. I don't think it represents as much risk as they can. And once you let it go through their testing, it's another IoT device, right?
And the other thing you can do too is we still have PoE boards, and you know, because you do on a lot of entry doors, you're going to have a handicap operator. You do need to move that reader not on the integrated lock, but off the door, so that, you know, the worst thing I ever see is there's a reader right on the mulligan next to the hinge.
Well, you couldn't do that anyway.
What?
If I could.
You'd be surprised how often it's
But it's
nobody
not
catches
technically
that.
allowed.
Again, real world, it happens all the time. I mean, so yeah, I get it, okay. So again, it's doing the risk assessment portion of it and asking the owner and their IT people, what are you willing to accept?
Well, it's also having your end user prepared to do their own due diligence and, you know, Fortune 500 customer, you know, they have their own in-house pen testing crew. They work with third-party pen testers, the Linnell customer, and they spent a couple months testing the ASSA ABLOY and other Wi-Fi locks, and as they do with any product before it goes on their network. And this one in particular performed unusually well because these guys find something in everything. But you know, that onus has to fall a little bit on the customer, and now that everything's IT based, I mean, I tell the customer security is IT, and the only thing left that's not IT and security is the guard, and they're probably holding an IT device. So you know, they need to approach it with that mentality, and they need to take ownership in the process.
Yeah.
Well, they're developing robots that are eventually replace guards, but they keep following the lights and stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a cow tipping, but
Yeah, or spray painting them and school stuff, putting hats on and stuff.
didn't that kid get run over in a wall or something?
Yeah, and into a little pond.
So I don't want to take up and too much of anyone else's time, so if anyone has any other application questions or anything like that we can talk about, why we have, you know, some people who have experience with our innovative solutions.
I think one area that we kind of skimmed over in the last conference, and we didn't really talk about too much, is how Division 8 and Division 28 are getting blurred, and what that means in the real world to the GC who wants to self-perform Division 8 until he sees this integral lock reader, and he doesn't know what to do with it, because in most cases in the real world, and I had this discussion with one of your colleagues who showed up at a job fair, what really happens is the door supplier shows up with the frames and doors and a whole bunch of boxes, says thanks for your business. GC wants to self-perform this, and the person who's really doing the lock installation is not a carpenter. He may be a drywaller.
That's I guess it's then being specified in the Division 8 world, which is why we have these deep conversations about the Division 8 and Division 20, right? Because contract hardware guys are used to, here's the door, here's your pieces and parts, it's labeled to go on door 101A, right? And that's why we're having such heavy conversations about the Division 8 and the 28, which is why you really want to talk about performance-based specification. You want to add language in there that kind of talks about whose responsibility is what.
And at the end of the day, though, as we had this discussion earlier, it's the GC who's the master coordinator. He or she typically is more interested in sticks and bricks than anything with low voltage carrying over it. So it comes full circle at the end of the project where, hey, consultant, get out here and look at this Division 8 question. It's already been boogered up by somebody who really didn't know what they were doing.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this though, you know, and we're getting better all the time. These panelist solutions we've been selling for 9 to 10 years now, okay? And with that, we have a more educated end user, more educated architect. Doesn't mean it's all perfect, but we're making serious progress all the time because coordination's always a pain. See, you're not even talking integrated solutions or access control. Doors and hardware mechanically are painful, right? The door and frame's not plumb and square. I don't care what you put on it, you're gonna have a problem. Okay, so this is our world that we live in, but we're getting better all the time. And because by managing the channel, so like, you know, in regards to now integrated solutions, whether it's in Division 8 or 28, there's checks and balances in place that you can't get access to the product, you know, without the pre-vetting training and certified ahead of time. But we're constantly getting better as an industry.
You know, sorry, I just want, what I really like about the fully integrated wireless solution is they can't do anything with that opening until I show up with the lock. Right? Until the security integrator shows up with the lock. They can put the closer on it, they can put the hinges on it, but at the end of the day, they're not done with that door until somebody installs that lock.
That's the integrator does it.
They're perfect, but that's perfect for keeping it in Division 28.
So
Everything else, we're always going to have a challenge, it's education, but that's where it's incumbent on us as professionals. Listen, I was an architect, hate architects.
Recovery?
I'm a recovering architect, you're right. And, but I understood hardware very early on, like no architect ever did, and that I've dealt with. And it's incumbent on you as professionals, and knowledgeable professionals, to go through their hardware schedule before it hits the street. And you can, I don't care where it sits in the spec, as long as the words on that sheet are coordinated to prep only, security integration by others. It's going to make all the difference in the world.
So here's a couple things. Number one, Donna, is we did that job in Oregon with over 100 Harmony locks. It was required that the channel was a door hardware supplier, and the carpenters, what have you, whoever were hanging the doors and the frames, were certified by you all. But certification is only part of the qualification, because they're not wire guys. And Doug Allen, who I'm sure you know, ended up doing that and having to correct over a third of the locks because the carpenters had matched the wiring going in. Okay? Hold on a second. So what I would actually ask you this is do you think this is a valid approach? I'm more concerned that if we break out the locks into Division 28, but the doors and frames are here, there's a potential miss by somebody, and we miss a prep on a door or a lot of doors.
Always and forever.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Especially, you weren't in our last session, especially when the general contractor ignores all of that, has somebody do a takeoff that we need 3,000 doors for this job, and already pre-purchased them and they're on their way.
yeah. So the flip side I'm asking is, on the fire side, we see this all the time. I just worked on a bit this morning where duct smoke detectors on HVAC now, we're getting smarter about it. Supply the address, yours, I say, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We don't want our fire guys to hang because they don't really know where to put them on the ducts. So what about this? All supplied by 8, installed by 28. Do you see a disconnect problem there?
Nope.
We see all the above.
Yeah.
What?
I've done that a number of times.
Yeah.
The way I schedule the hardware, I put all the hardware groups or hardware sets in Division 8 under 3 different categories. The first category is the architectural hardware supplier. Second category is the, for lack of a better term, third category is the the integrator, and the third category is electrical, and so the hardware is there in Division 8, but the categories separate the responsibility. So all 3 guys know they have to get together in order to summon that door to where it should be. So the prep is there and everything. I also had another guy that said, well, if this integrator is going to take care of this particular door lock, I want him to take care of the whole door. He's responsible for the whole door. Oddly, that worked out well because something gets propped open and an alarm happens. Who's the first one going to get called? And that's going to be the integrator. The third way to handle it is to buy or sell whatever the warranty service agreement to the integrator after the job has been completed, so that, like it or not, it becomes the integrator's responsibility. I'm just saying.
Listen, the best success I've had in the whole process, and there was something that the Federal Reserve in New York requires, a responsibility matrix within Division 8. So they made us all fill out a responsibility matrix to cover everything that was being installed for hardware, whether it was related to security or not, from end to end.
I've seen that before.
So, as the security professional, we had to fill out 20 lines of responsibility, right down to, who's going to install the battery that supports this in the power supply that has the wire that feeds the lock that goes to the hinge, I don't know why she swallowed the fly.
And who gets the photo on the back of the door, too,
But it helps. And again, you have to insert yourself in the process. You have to review that hardware schedule before it goes out the door. Sometimes you don't get that opportunity, but it's got to be a part of it. It's one of the most important things you do, because a change order on a door is hundreds, thousands of dollars sometimes. It's not
And delays.
And don't forget, you might have 1,000 of those doors. It's exactly the same way.
You know, some of the guys who were in the last one that I was a panelist on the door hardware that was in the CSI discussion is, you know, I tried to reach out to my door hardware supplier on a courthouse project, small courthouse project I was working on. I said, look, you forgot the plugs on the wire harness. You need to get those on there. You gave me a 10-foot wire harness from the hinge to the lock. That's a little too much. And I got, well, that's what was in the spec, that's what we're supplying. So I think from an industry standpoint, kind of would be good if you guys could start letting them know we're not the enemy. A lot of cases, we can make them look way more brilliant than they're actually being.
Yeah, when we talk about that, that's the value you bring your end clients. Because you're saying, listen, we know hardware is hard. Now we're going to electrify more stuff. You need me, you guys. You're needed at the owner level. Why? Because you're taking the complexity away from them. If without overcomplicating, you look at a door, right? Mechanical, no wires, no nothing, right? Now you have a paired opening. You have a coordinator. You have door closers, right? You have flush bolts, automatic, right, to meet the code. That's already complicated before you throw wires and readers on top of it, right? So with you as security specifiers, that's your magic sauce. That's what you're delivering to the customer because you're bridging all those gaps for
But your channel, in many ways, I think, views us as the enemy. We're there to make
you're wrong.
them
You're wrong. I'm going to tell you you're wrong, okay? So in the 20 years,
differ.
No. All right, well, listen, but we'll talk. But I'm just telling you you're wrong because we.
I want to hear the comments.
Oh, man, you don't know. Hell no, yesterday.
Are you guys married? You fighting girls?
Right now, you're in the lead.
I'm just saying, so I'll finish. We talk about the value of a security.
You don't deal with her very much, do you?
No.
You know, by the way, boys.
Is it kind of like, you guys say yes, ma'am, and go on?
No, let me finish, so you're happy with the answer, okay? We talk about the value of a security consultant at the owner level all the time, okay? And proof is our authorized channel partner and certified integrator strategy, okay? We have competition that doesn't police the channel. Because really the security, specifier, they don't really offer a whole lot of value, and the integrator either. You can just buy it online, plug it in yourself, okay? For 10 years, we've been taking it on the chin because we police the channel, because we're protecting the value of a security specifier, the security integrator, because our mission is that everyone has the best user experience possible. That's all parties involved. So that's why I say I have to disagree with you. And not only that, we're also making introductions with end users who have needs and security specifiers.
And I will say that this project was not your product. So maybe there's a different.
Thanks for the clarification.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot more sense.
So again, but my experience has been that they do what they want to do. So.
John, you say the end user, you're talking about the owners?
And clients, yes. Those guys who have their own in-house security guys, they're resident experts. I don't need a security consultant, right?
That's not what I'm talking about.
The door.
We're talking about the door hardware suppliers.
So, can I add a comment?
Yeah,
I want to add a comment. I think that the contract hardware suppliers, the architectural hardware guys, don't really understand what you do. I think that we have a responsibility. I say we, I'll speak on behalf of ASSA specifically. We have a responsibility to help educate them on the value you bring.
Yes.
So I'll tell you, the contract hardware guys, okay, because I've been doing this for 20 years, doors. So they're done. I've been selling this lock for 100 years. I'm like, it's not a lock anymore. That's a reader and a panel and a Rex, and it's not in your wheelhouse. So we are making the effort to educate them as well, so that that's not their wheelhouse, right? They look at it as a lock because it looks like a lock, but it's a power supply, it's a switch, it's a panel, it's a reader. So we're educating them, and we are doing our due diligence to make sure that we cover all the bases mechanically and electrically.
And there's things we can do here, right? I mean, I think that the collective input that everybody has tells me that coordination continues to need improvement, right? Clearly, because everybody falls on one side or the other, and then you start dicing and slicing the pieces. I think if an end user understands that it's okay to have the door hardware company supply intelligent locks provided they're partnered up with an integrator that can provide the other half of the service. And wouldn't it be compelling to an end user to understand that when the construction project is done and the system's up and running, that they have a service organization that's going to take care of that for the life of the building, right? And they're not limited to one player. They have a number of players who can do it. I don't think we're collectively telling that story well enough to the end user yet. And they have to understand the value of that through the construction project. It's a really hard thing to move, but I think we're throwing ourselves in front of that. And as Donna said, we've been taking it on the chin for a while because that hardware group, they don't understand, they don't like that we're putting parameters around how this should be done for intelligent homes. So we're in your corner, but we got to do a better job of collectively educating the customers.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, one comment I would add, and what we found to be quite successful, I mean, one is communication. I think the biggest thing is that there's still a bit of siloed shop drawing reviews and all of that. And so when we do shop drawing reviews, we literally we'll bring ASSA to the table, we'll bring the electric, we bring everyone to the table, and we all just kind of roll it out.
That's when it works best.
It works better, yeah. The other thing we do is we actually require, we require that they do full door mock-ups of electrical openings. And what it starts coming down to is that they realize, oh crap, it's not just 4 screws and a mortise lock. Like all of a sudden they're screwing the thing together and this guy doesn't want to own it anymore. And it's like, well, I'd rather him understand he doesn't want to own it now when we're building a mock-up as opposed to when we're 300 doors into it and he's like, I didn't want to own it.
Where do you make that cost justification for quantity of doors on the project?
Right in the Division 1.
No, I'm saying, but where do you, as a consultant, how big a project is it justified to put those? Because if you've got 7 different types of doors that you're going to mock, do you need 100 of those doors to make it worth financially feasible? Or do you say, if it's just one, I don't care, I want it mocked up?
It's a risk reward. So what we talk to our clients about, I think if you have 7 different types of door configurations, you probably have something else you probably need to look at. What we see is that you really can probably slim that down a bit. But it comes down to what the owner wants to risk. I mean, we've shown them the benefit of, even a one-off door, just building it a mock-up is so much cheaper. I mean, we found out things like, and Donna didn't even talk about it, the difference between a knockdown frame and a welded frame. I mean, that's huge. You're never going to get a knockdown frame to be square. And it started proving to people they should buy welded frames. Yes, they're $200 more a frame, and they come in bigger boxes, but it's going to be a square door.
So it takes longer to get.
Right.
I'm gonna add one more level of complexity to this. You're all having that conversation about installation. The biggest thing, and I think it's incumbent on ASSA and other manufacturers, is educating the integration community and certifying the integration community. Because now on the integrated lock side, even if IET owns it from a communicative perspective, we still need somebody to troubleshoot and maintain the lock. And no more are the days where they show up and go, yeah, it's a mechanical lock issue. Go get the locksmith. We need better training and certification in integrators, and that's where it's falling short at the end of the day, even after all your best efforts to get it integrated, right? Because now they need to be locksmiths, electricians, and technologists on the IT side of things to make sure these are all functioning and are maintained properly.
And I think that the locksmith seems to think it's not his problem now, and that he kind of internalizes this resistance to these kind of locks because they're too expensive or because he doesn't need them. He's got that good old, what's that metal thing with the bumps in it? Key. And, I've seen a lot of pushbacks from locksmiths, particularly the smaller ones, the 1-2 man operations. Yeah, and I can't blame them either. But now you got,
I don't want them touching it.
yeah, and now you got the IoT coming up, so maybe that'll help a little bit. A lot of electric lock devices out there that some of these guys are starting to put in these little, smash and play kind of cameras, and who knows? You might see a big increase.
We have about 5 minutes, so
I've seen a smart integrator hire a locksmith when he goes to the
they do.
division.
We partner with them
part
too.
and
So they're like, I don't want to cut the door. All right, we'll connect.
Come $1,000, come please do this, and then he's talking the same language as the door harbor guy.
Yeah, so we
They may
certify
be competitive, right?
him. We certify him as a preferred installer. So he's not an integrator, but he's a preferred installer. Then we connect the certified integrator with a preferred installer. And guess what? It's beautiful.
But after the preferred installer leaves, the guy that they hire,
Yeah, right.
just back down to the integrator.
Right, hopefully there's some training going on.
Yeah, and hopefully the relationship will have caught on, and they will work together in the future.
We're seeing it. We've been seeing it for a few years.
Would it be reasonable that in my specifications I could say, preferred integrator, our integrator shall be tested and trained on the ASSA products?
ACPCI certified. That's all you need to write, just to, that any applicable bidder must be ACPCI certified. If you just write that, then you got it covered.
And that is
Authorized channel partner and certified integrator. That means not just any integrator has access to the solution. These are trained ahead of time individuals who
trained on ASSA products.
That's right.
But what about, I'm in an open bid situation.
In that case, you have more cluster ahead of you, okay? Because this is what we've done, that we've been taking it on the chin for a few years, because we're policing the channel a little bit, because these solutions aren't for anybody. You can't just take, an alarm guy who calls themselves an integrator to be deploying intelligent solutions and enterprise systems. But if you then use brand X and O, you're going back into Clusterville, because it's how it is.
I'm saying, if there was a factory certified guy that installed your hardware, or Stanley's hardware, or I'm talking about very specific rating or very specific certification on that product.
So we have that.
And he has to come and demonstrate a couple of installs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
But since we've been launching our solution, so almost 10 years now, or 10 years, something like that, we've had this mechanism in place, so that way the installers know what they're doing, the integrators know what they're doing. It doesn't mean you don't get a bad something sometime that happens, but we've really done a really good job with that, connecting all those pieces and parts. So they're vetted, certified, and trained ahead of time. They can't even get pricing. They can't get access to pricing.
What would be the name of that? Just a generic name.
An author. So just say a certified partner.
Locksmith.
You don't have to say that, because you know what? We're getting integrators who are really innovative integrators that they want to do all that. They don't want to partner. It's like, all right, I'm going to drill a reader here, and they're capable.
A certified installer.
Certified integrator. If they don't want to do the installation, they will partner with.
No, I'm talking about a certified installer. That's a person.
Yeah, it's a certified integrator.
Yeah. So if he's a must have certified installers or technicians who install this lock.
A certified integrator covers that.
Yeah, I know.
They're doing it in-house.
One person, or is that a company?
Well,
no, it's individual. So if you're a company, no, it's individual.
No, what happens is it's one person in the company. I'm not trying to be facetious.
Yeah, it's.
But that's what happens.
It's the same challenge we face with all.
and you can say that you can increase your spec and say during the life of the warranty, one of your installers must be installation certified.
And we do that.
Factory certified.
It's in the spec.
Yeah, I know you don't, but we've got to translate it into specifications.
Come on board, but it's always on vacation.
Yeah, he'll be back next week.
In China.
But I guess the point is that we run the same thing on certified technicians for access control for CCTV. I mean, they're certified technicians all over the place.
We just want to make sure the integrator is certified in Linnell and certified in.
Why doesn't ALOA make a certification in big time in these kind of products? Just a general certification.
Ours is via we're done. I know, I'm sorry, only because he's flagging me, but,
It's going.
you know. Anyway, well, thank you guys. Thank you for your time.